Deep in Connecticut's woods lies a place people say is so evil it's literally illegal to visit. No birds sing, phones glitch, people go mad. They call it Dudley Town, America's most haunted ghost town. But the truth is way darker, and way more human. The legend everyone knows 1500s. English noble Edmund Dudley is beheaded supposedly curses his entire bloodline. 1740s. The Dudley family settles a remote valley in Cornwall, Connecticut. Then the tragedies start. Lightning kills a general's wife, people fall off barns and lose their minds, entire families vanish, houses burn for no reason. 1900s. Last residents flee. 1970s. Ed and Lorraine Warren, yes, the Conjuring Warrens investigate and declare it demonically possessed. Today, paranormal investigators like Nicholas Grossman say it's an interdimensional portal, total silence, ferns wave goodbye, a muffling void in your ears.
October 2025, Paranormal Podcast Deep Dive. On the Northeast Legends and Stories podcast, host Phil Rossi recounted a 2024 overnight investigation. Phil Rossi talks about experiencing paranormal and unexplained events in ghost town of Dudley Town. He described hearing disembodied footsteps crunching leaves, despite no wind, and capturing EVPs, electronic voice phenomena, saying, "leave," in Latin. Rossi, a seasoned investigator, called it one of his most oppressive sights, with team members feeling sudden nausea and cold spots dropping 20 degrees Fahrenheit. The episode, released October 11, 2025, ties into broader Northeast folklore like the Melonheads legend.
Earlybirdonthetrail.com/s 11 spooky hikes, warned at Dudley Town's Nexus of Evil, a 2025 entry point shut mid-September for unexplained can markings, leading intruders astray. Hikers report illness waves, post-visit, like the historical insanity plague. All that remains today are several stone foundations and lonely lichen-covered rock walls. If a local and state police are successfully shirked and you're able to access the site, not encouraged or endorsed, one can expect the complete and utter absence of what would be a normal cacophony of cheerful woodland sounds. It seems as though no birds chirp or sing, no squirrels rustle through the leaves, and no deer prod through this wilderness area. They are aware of something we humans are not. Access at your own risk.
Pig-Faced Demons and Shadow Chases YouTube, 2025. A video titled, America's Real-Life Village of the Damned, recounts 1970s hikers spotting a tall black figure with glowing red eyes and a pig-like snout that chased them uphill, vanishing into fog. It claims the entity levitates intruders and whispers threats in guttural voices.
Ed and Lorraine Warren's 1970s visit is legend, but lesser known is the ordeal of their film crew during that Halloween special. AmericanHauntingsInc.com as they set up lights near the old church ruins. Holy water vials shattered spontaneously, and a guttural growl echoed from the tree line. Described as a pig demon's snort mixed with human agony. One cameraman, filming a pan shot, felt a vice-like grip on his ankle, yanking him into a thorn bush. He emerged with deep gashes and a fractured wrist, babbling about red eyes in the roots. Lorraine sensed multiple entities feasting on fear, and Ed's Latin prayers were mocked by echoing laughter. The footage aired glitchy, with frames of distorted faces overlaying the ruins. A 2025 update on American Hauntings Inc. includes a crew survivor's letter. Decades later, he still wakes to the smell of sulfur and feels phantom pulls in his sleep, convinced the curse hitched a ride home.
Dudley Town was noted for its timber, which was burned and used to make wood coal for the nearby Litchfield County iron furnaces in Cornwall and other towns. The furnaces later moved closer to the railroads and the more industrial towns though, and the lumber was no longer needed. Iron ore was used from the area for a time, and there were 3 water-powered mills in Dudley Town as well. Most of the mills eventually closed because of the long trip down the mountain to deliver their goods. Despite the outward signs of prosperity though, there were strange deaths and bizarre occurrences at Dudley Town from the start. Some historians have attempted to downplay the unusual events in recent years. They will debunk the legends of the town by first stating how few people there ever were who lived here, and then will try and downplay the disappearances, cases of insanity and weird deaths, as if such things happen all of the time. And perhaps they do, but why so many unusual happenings in such an isolated area with so few people living in it? The number of deaths that have occurred here would not be such a high number in a larger town, but in this small community, one can't help but wonder what exactly was taking place. There are also, I believe, an inordinate number of people who went insane in this area, as well as people who simply vanished that are in addition to those who are documented here. It's no wonder, bogus or not, that a story started about a Dudley Town curse. 3 of the Dudleys moved out of the region and lived long and full lives, dying of natural causes and forever diminishing any possibilities of a curse. Only Abiel Dudley remained in town, and after a series of reverses, lost his entire fortune and his mind. Abiel died in 1799 at the age of 90, and when he was no longer able to pay his debts, the town took his property, sold it, and then made him a ward of the town. Toward the end, Abiel was senile and insane and would not be the last to suffer from this affliction. In 1792, 7 years before Abiel Dudley passed away, his good friend and neighbor, Gershon Hollister, was killed while building a barn at the home of William Tanner, Abiel's closest neighbor. Tanner was also said to have gone insane, although likely from old age and senility rather than from supernatural influences. He lived to the age of 104 and according to records was slightly demented at the time of his death. There have been stories that have circulated claiming that Tanner told other villages of strange creatures that came out of the woods at night. If this is true, there is no way for us to know if these creatures were products of the unexplained or products of Tanner's feeble mind. The Nathaniel Carter family moved to Dudley Town in 1759 and lived in a house once owned by Abiel Dudley before he was made a ward of the town. A mysterious plague swept through Dudley Town in Cornwall and took the lives of the Adoniram Carter family, relatives of Nathaniel, and saddened by the loss, they moved to Binghamton, New York from Dudley Town in 1763. Those who believe in the curse say that the taint of Dudley Town followed after them, but their tragic fate was actually far too common during the early days of the frontier. The Carters moved to the Delaware wilderness, in the heart of Indian Territory, and during an attack, Indians slaughtered Nathaniel, his wife and an infant child. The Carters' other 3 children were abducted and taken to Canada, where 2 daughters were ransomed. The son, David Carter, remained with his captors, married an Indian girl and later returned to the United States for his education. He went on to edit a newspaper and became a justice on the Supreme Court. Another bizarre tragedy affected one of the most famous residents of the region, General Herman Swift, who had served in the Revolutionary War under George Washington. In 1804, his wife, Sarah Fay, was struck by lightning while standing on the front porch of their home near Dudley Town. She was killed instantly. The general went insane and died soon after. Many have dismissed this incident as not being connected to the other unusual events, saying that Swift did not actually live in Dudley Town but on Bald Mountain Road, where his house remains today, and that he only went insane when he became old and senile. But in an area this sparsely populated, the records indicated 3 people to have gone insane in the space of less than a half-century. Could this be mere coincidence? And does a person being struck by lightning while standing on their front porch qualify as being unusual? I would say that it does, and our story is not yet complete. Another famous personage allegedly connected to Dudley Town was Horace Greeley, the editor and founder of the New York Tribune, or so the stories of the curse go. In this case, the story deserves to be debunked. Greeley married a young woman named Mary Young Cheney, who the stories of the curse say was born in Dudley Town. In truth, Mary was born and raised in nearby Litchfield and never lived in Dudley Town. She left the area as early as 1833 and went to live in a vegetarian boarding house that was owned by Dr. Graham of Graham Cracker fame and became involved in the popular wellness movement of the time. While there, she met and later married Horace Greeley. In 1872, Greeley ran for president against Ulysses S. Grant and lost the election. A short time before it, Mary suffered from an attack of lung disease and died. Her death occurred in New York City with her husband and 2 daughters, Ida and Gabrielle, in attendance. She was buried in Greenwood Cemetery. The legends claim that she committed suicide, but this was not the case. Greeley himself died 1 month later, and the electoral votes that he received in the election were distributed to minor candidates. After the Civil War, Dudley Town began to die and many of the villagers simply packed up and moved away. The demise of the town itself is hardly surprising, whether you believe in the so-called curse or not. Its geographical location was foolhardy at best. Surrounded by hills and at elevations of more than 1,500 feet, there was little chance that a good crop would ever grow and sustain life in the village. The winters were harsh here, and even the hardy apple trees were stunted from months of cold. As mentioned already, the soil was rocky and the area was plagued by almost too much water. It pooled into tepid swamps and seeped into the earth, creating a damp morass. But even if you overlook the idea of an actual curse and admit that the location of the town must have had a hand in its undoing, the sheer number of unusual deaths, leaving out that of Mary Greeley, and mental conditions in such an isolated area more than suggests that something out of the ordinary was occurring in the little town. And no matter how hard the debunkers try to disregard the next mysterious event to occur in Dudley Town, their efforts fall short. This event occurred in 1901, at a time when the population of Dudley Town had dwindled away to almost nothing. One of the last residents of the town was a man named John Patrick Brophy. Tragedy visited swiftly and in several blows. First, his wife died of consumption, which was not uncommon in those days, and there was nothing strange about her ailment, as she had been suffering from it for years. This did not lessen Brophy's grief, however, but he was soon further stricken when his 2 children vanished into the forest just a short time after the funeral. And, while their disappearance could have been voluntary, they had been accused of stealing sleigh blankets, a minor offense there is nothing to indicate that it was. They vanished and were never found. Shortly after, the Brophy's house burned to the ground in an unexplained fire, and not long after, Brophy himself vanished into the forest. He was never seen again. By the early 1900s, Dudley Town was completely deserted. The remaining homes began to fall into disrepair and ruin, and soon, the forest began to reclaim the village that had been carved out of it. But there was still one other death that proponents of the curse have connected to Dudley Town, and while the curse may be unlikely, it does mark one additional case of insanity for an isolated region that was already riddled with them. Around 1900, William Clark came to Cornwall and fell in love with the forest and the quiet country life. Clark had been born in 1877 and grew up on a farm in Tenafly, New Jersey. He later became a professor of surgery and taught at Columbia College of Physicians and Surgeons, as well as earning a reputation as the leading cancer specialist in New York. He purchased 1,000 acres of land in the wilds of Connecticut, which included Dudleytown, and began construction of a summer and vacation home here. Over the next number of years, he and his wife, Harriet Bank Clark, visited the house on weekends and during the summer until it was completed. After that, it became mostly a holiday house for short trips in the summer and for Thanksgiving. Together, they maintained an idyllic second life near Dudleytown until 1918. One summer weekend drive, Clark was called away to New York on an emergency. His wife stayed behind, and according to the story, he returned 36 hours later to find that she had gone insane, just as a number of previous residents of the village had done. The story also claims that she told of strange creatures that came out of the forest and attacked her. She committed suicide soon after. But how much truth is there to this tale? Perhaps more than some would like you to believe. It has been recorded that for several years before her suicide, Mrs. Clark suffered from a chronic illness. There is nothing to indicate what this ailment might have been or whether it was a physical or mental one. I think that it is safe to say, though, that mentally stable individuals do not ordinarily take their own lives. As far as whether or not she saw strange creatures in the woods, well, we will never really know for sure, but even if we disregard this, we still have one more suicide that occurred to a resident of the nearly non-existent village of Dudleytown. While undoubtedly shattered by his wife's suicide drive, Clark continued to maintain his house in Dudleytown and continued to visit. A number of years later, he remarried and returned to stay at his summer house until a larger home was completed nearby in 1930. In 1924, he and his wife, Carita, as well as other doctors, friends and interested landowners formed the Dark Entry Forest Association. It was designed to act as forest preserve so that the land around Dudleytown would remain forever wild. They held their first meeting in 1926 with 41 members. Dr. Clark died in Cornwall Bridge in February 1943, and Carita passed away 5 years later. A number of their children and family members still reside in the area. As far as we know, the ghostly tales began to surface in the 1940s. It was at this time that visitors to the ruins of the village began to speak of strange incidents and wispy apparitions in the woods. Even today, those who have visited the place boast of paranormal photographs, overwhelming feelings of terror, mysterious lights, sights and sounds, and even of being touched, pushed and scratched by unseen hands. Some researchers refer to the area as a negative power spot, or a place where entities entered this world from the other side. They say this may explain the strange events in Dudleytown's history, like the eerie reports, the strange creatures, and perhaps even the outbreaks of insanity and madness. The place is often thought of as tainted, in some way, as if the ground has somehow spoiled here, or perhaps was sour all along. Some historians and debunkers dismiss such reports and theories and maintain that just because the so-called curse of Dudleytown doesn't exist, then nothing strange has ever occurred here either. However, an open-minded look at some of the things that have happened do seem to show this as a strange place, and one that has been an enigma from the earliest days of its history. Whether or not there is any truth to the accounts of people who have come here since the days when the village was abandoned is up to the reader to decide. I should warn you those trying to visit Dudleytown.
This is an area. I'm gonna drive around this hill with the recorder. Or maybe I should get out first and get some footage. Okay, let's get some footage first, actually.
I spent a day driving around the roads leading to DudleyTown Hill. I can tell you that I definitely felt something, mainly anxiety and confusion due to lack of cell service and navigation. The first road I came upon was Dark Entry Road. The name alone intrigued me, as well as the terrain on Google Maps. Upon driving up this road there were steep inclines which did cause my ears to pop. I will note that the fauna appeared different to that of the rest of Litchfield. As I pulled up to the end of the road I came across dozens and dozens of no trespassing signs. Seriously, they were everywhere. At the end of the road were the most abundant no trespassing signs. Even a security camera, which I have no idea how that managed to work out there in the woods, but I certainly felt watched. I turned around and decided to drive around a bit more, eventually finding a spot where I could access offline maps towards the more infamous Dudleytown Hill. Similar to Dark Entry Road, Dudleytown Hill Road ended with a dead end full of no trespassing signs, though there wasn't a camera. I decided to envision myself in the shoes of locals as well as the property owners. Certainly I wasn't the first person to try visiting this location. How many people had? What liabilities might the owners have to deal with when it comes to people more brazen? People who might decide to wander off into those woods only to fall off a cliff ledge or find themselves injured. I thought about the satanic rituals that plagued the property and the vandalism. I even thought about what that might do to the owner's property insurance. It's enough to drive anyone mad, confirmed by some leaked police reports.
October 20.
The law behind it, Dudleytown, Connecticut, is no longer on maps. The state closed the roads, posted, "No trespassing," and let the forest finish what it started 3 centuries ago. It began in 1747 when 4 Dudley brothers climbed a barren ridge in Cornwall to farm iron dark soil. Within 20 years, one brother's wife was dead on the hearth, another brother clawed his own cellar walls to splinters in madness, and 2 more simply vanished. Their neighbors learned the land did not forgive ambition. The deaths never stopped, only changed flavor. Lightning that struck only Dudley barns. Fevers that took only Dudley children. An axe murder in 1792 whose killer swore the victim's eyes had turned yellow in the dark. By 1800 the ridge was already whispering about a curse brought from England in Dudley blood. Strangers tried next. Crops withered in perfect circles. Wells tasted of rust and pennies. In 1872 Horace Greeley's wife walked into the woods smiling and was found 2 weeks later, still smiling, rigor mortis days old. In 1926 Dr. William Clark woke his houseguests with screams, fled barefoot into the night, and spent the rest of his life drawing the same broken symbol on asylum walls. By 1940 the last house was empty, plates still on the table. The forest rolled over everything like a tongue. People still sneak in. They come out shaking, cameras scratched, sometimes not at all. Search dogs sit and whine at the boundary stones, refusing to cross. At night the wind carries a low, wet murmur, too many voices trying to remember their own names. The locals call it a brook. The locals are lying. Something patient waits in the cellar holes and lilac thickets. It has all the time the world forgot to give the Dudleys. And it is still hungry.